it's a battle cry to really go all in on your life. No matter how cliche it sounds, no matter how many times you've heard it before, it's like we need a constant reminder because so many people will go to the end of their lifespan not having done a damn thing about getting to know themselves better, or even when they do get to know themselves or they do recognize that they have desires or whatever, many will not have the courage to make the change and overcome that and get through those obstacles. They will not rise to the challenge and they will continue marching down this predetermined path that they've been put on. Welcome to the Pivoting Wolf. Open conversations with interesting people from varying backgrounds across several different countries around the world. Hello to whoever's out there who's listening to this episode of The Pivoting Wolf. Thank you, Kirsten, for joining me today. So I met Kirsten last summer. It was like July or so, wasn't it? I think.
Yes, it was.
One of the things I want to do is I want to first give you an opportunity to tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we'll get into some things. So,
Yeah, yeah.
welcome.
Thank you, Rhonda, for having me in your show. I really, really appreciate it because for me, it's always sad when I work with a client at the end of the working relationship. It's like saying goodbye or sending your kids out into the world, basically. And I meet so with my clients, I always feel like we have become friends in the end. And I truly have that feeling with you. So naturally, I would always say yes to speak on your show. And yeah, about myself, I'm a German living in New Zealand, and I moved to New Zealand after I had a quite yeah, it was a bit of a traumatic experience where I lost my job. For me, it was very traumatic because I had sacrificed a lot for my job. My then still fairly small children, they were brought up by au pair girls, boys, and nannies, while I um, worked a lot because I thought I have to do it to kind of create a good career, and so I worked on it at one point for reasons of economy and I like change and too much pressure for change from my side. I lost my job, and it was, to me, it came as a shock because all my appraisals were really good, and I was, and so in my eyes there was nothing wrong, but it it was, yeah, it was, I fixed what was set out to fix, and that was also something that I was kind of told: you fixed everything. So now it's
Mm-hmm.
done. And anyway, but for me, it was more than losing a job. For me, it was also part of my identity because I had been brought up in the belief that you go out and get a job and be in a job and do your best and do what you're told, and um, never get too high, and just keep your head low until you're pensioned off, and then you
I
get
think
a
that
pension. And
a lot of people come from that background. I remember, this is a main theme that you and I talked about quite a bit when we
yeah,
were working together. And I know from the survey that you filled out, you said that that was your first pivotal moment and it put you on a journey to learn
yeah,
more about yourself and focus on self development. And, what you're saying there resonates so strongly with me, as you know. And I would assert that a lot of other people who are hearing this right now can probably relate because that's kind of how this whole pivoting wolf thing came about, was to
Mm,
address exactly what you're talking about. Either it's our parents or society or whatever the structures are in the world that kind of march you down this predisposed path. So, can you tell us more about what it was that you learned about yourself at that time, and how that personal development journey turned out for you?
yeah. So I think with a mindset like I just described, when you lose your job, you feel like a failure. That's the first thing, because you failed in the simplest task that you were given by just you keep your job as long as possible. So I failed in that, and yeah, it also triggered in me feeling that I'm not good enough, because why do they don't want to keep me, because there's something that why I'm not good enough, and I made that very, very personal. And at that point also, my husband had took a position in New Zealand, um, and then asked me whether I and the family wanted to follow. So we did that, because I definitely needed a change. So moved all the whole family, including two dogs, over to New Zealand from Germany, and there I was totally lost, but I had at least the clarity now that I didn't ever want to work in corporate again. But because was brought up with this narrow mindset, I couldn't really imagine what else I could do. So
Mm.
that was a dilemma. And then I spoke with a lady I'd recently met, and she introduced me to the Clifton Strengths test. And I said, and she said, "What are your strengths?" And I said, "I don't really have any particular strengths. I'm just me." And thinking of what is drilled into your heads about all those STEM sciences, or where you need to be good at to be recognized as a person who has any talents. And my strengths weren't sitting there, thus then equal what can I say, then thinking, okay, if I don't have those strengths, or I'm not talented, not
Mm.
knowing that there's so much more. And with this strengths test, I discovered that I actually did have strengths, and that there was more to me that I didn't know. And it started my search to understand myself better.
Oh,
To
that's.
Yeah,
May I ask you a question real quick though, because I'm intrigued.
yeah,
So you said that I understand how that must have felt when you lost your job. That's very common, as you know. We've talked about it quite a bit, but that was not new territory at all. I'm sure, because
no,
we really truly are conditioned to have, particularly our work life, be so much a part of our identity. But
yeah.
moving to New Zealand, and even though you had this pivot with losing the job, what was it about? What was it that made you decide that you knew you didn't want to go back into corporate? And the reason I ask is, I don't want to make an assumption that, oh, because you lost your job, that therefore that turned you off. But was there something else that clicked with you? Because most people would just go find another job, and if that's what they'd been doing was corporate, it's very easy for them to just, go back and try to do that again. But what was it that was different for you that made you decide that you did not want to go back into that environment?
um yeah, so the first thing that made me decide that I didn't want to go back to that environment was my gut feeling that actually came through. That even thinking of applying for corporate jobs made me feel really sick.
Mm.
And that was a signal for me where I thought, why? Um, there are so many other things I could do possibly, but I'm so fixated on being an employee that I'm not even exploring or considering them. But then I started thinking about some really bizarre business ideas, because I said, no, I'm not made for corporate. And also the funny thing is that the strength test I did confirmed that totally, that my strengths, I could be in a corporate position, but but also my strengths made it hard for me to be in a in an environment that doesn't change, that shows um, doesn't show a lot of initiative, and moves very, very slowly. So I was in big corporation, and always having to ask for permission, sitting in pointless meetings, um, where people just like the sound of their own voice. And I really, oh, I was shuddered when I had to think about it. Do you want to do that again? Do you want to put your armor on every morning and be a person you're not?
That's
Because at
really
the,
deep. Yeah.
yeah, because at the core, you hate it. You simply hate it. And you do it because you were always told that you had to, not because you want to. And also that that person inside of you that has now kind of peeking its head out a little bit and saying, hey, could I maybe have a word and say what I want, what I need?
I love that analogy. Peeking your head. So, given what you said about the mindset that you had been raised with,
Mm.
and then that you decided to listen to your gut, how courageous is that? You know? Because you really could have told that little voice that was trying to have a word to hush up, you know? So, where do you think that that came from? That you got that courage to listen to the voice and kind of denounce what it was that you had been raised with, that mindset? How did that
That was a
happen?
yeah, that was a bit of a process. But one thing I did was that I did really crazy things that were totally different from what I've done before. I was in the pharmaceutical industry and clinical research organizations, and had some, well, I was doing operations management. And then I thought, oh, New Zealand has lovely merino wool. I start crocheting beanies and sell them online, and then I built my empire of crocheting nannies who produce these beanies that I sell for a lot of money. So bizarre idea. So I started off crocheting and stuff, and I said, heck, this is not working. This is shit. This is really bad. So then because I love dogs and I always wanted, I had the wish to become a behaviorist, because I've got one challenging border collie. The other one's okay, but I learned a lot from that collie, and also I learned from my collie the power of emotions and the power of just being in the moment and enjoying the moment. So I said I'd do something with dogs, and there was not far from our house was a dog wash place where people come to have their dogs groomed. And so you know what, can I have a shift or two a week? And so I worked in this dog wash for a couple of months or something, and then I thought, you know what, you absolutely hate being told what to do by people, um, or especially when you know that it doesn't make any sense what they say. And um, so then I said, but in every employment situation, there's always someone telling you what to do, unless you're the CEO. But then still, then people are telling you what to do.
Yeah, the board of
Um,
directors.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I thought, and I don't want that anymore, because I think that my mind needs an outlet, my creativity needs an outlet, my um, whole being needs to be allowed to be what it wants to be.
Mm.
so that I can be the person I am and don't have to either put on a t-shirt that they wear in a dog wash, or a suit if that you wear in a corporate office. So
Hmm.
I didn't want to do that anymore. I want to just put on something comfortable but neat, and be myself.
I
And
really love
that was the major thing.
I
Yeah.
really love that story because to me it speaks to such power that you pulled from during that time. I understand how difficult. First of all, I want to acknowledge you for rejecting the mindset, because especially when it's something that we're raised with and it's so strong,
Hmm.
because that's such a common, very typical experience. Like you said, keep your head down, be a good girl, do what you're told, etc. I mean, how many people out there are nodding their head because, I mean, we're all pretty much raised that way. I think. I mean, there are
Yeah, yeah,
there are a few exceptions. I know, of course. I don't want to categorize the whole world, but that's very, very common. And for you
yeah.
to even say that, even if you're working with dogs who you love, like, no, there's too much of being told what to do going on here. Like, I'm not gonna do this. So that voice must have been really loud and
Oh
strong in your
yeah, yeah.
head. And I wanted to dig a little bit deeper into that because, if I might just shift gears just a little bit, if you don't mind,
Yeah, it's
I
fine.
I was very um, I know a little bit about your backstory because of things that we've talked about, some things that we even have in
Yeah.
common. But I wanted to, if I may, just kind of touch a little bit on some of the things that you talked about in your childhood. And I know that there there it wasn't all glitter and rainbows, right? Um, but you talked about how your father was, kind of a disciplinarian type, and some of the experiences that shaped you. The birthday party. Do you mind if I just read a little clip from this? Share about
Yeah,
the birthday
yeah,
party?
fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, when you were invited to the birthday party, because I remember you telling me about this last week, and I was really
Mm.
just stunned. You turned up for the party. Your friend, the little whoever the child was, grabs the present out of your hand, but their mother tells you that you weren't invited and sends you home. I mean, that kind of rejection at, you said you were 4 or 5 years old. That's devastating for a 4 or 5 year old. Kids don't understand that. There's no reason for that. And then to the next paragraph, what you said was it established some patterns in your brain that haven't served you well over the years. And the reason I wanted to call this out is because I want to juxtapose that against the powerful story that you just shared. So, coming from these experiences that made you feel like you don't matter and you're not worth it, not good enough, and you mentioned some of these feelings bubbling up after the job loss of feeling like you're not good enough, etc. Um, how powerful is that to overcome these kinds of experiences, because they do make a lasting impression on children, and they do tend to form and shape our hubris, if you will, and the way that we view the world. And so, despite that happening, I wanted to commend you for your strength. You know, letting your voice have
Thank
a
you.
word. I love the way you said, I want to have a word. I can relate to that, right? I've got a little voice like
Yeah.
that too that we talked about. They can get really loud and obnoxious sometimes, those voices that are like, excuse me, I've been waiting and waiting and waiting to
Yeah.
have a say. Would you please listen to me? So I wanted to just acknowledge that,
Yeah.
yes, you have tremendous strength. And I want to just take a moment and give you that credit now. I want to give you that credit. I know we haven't known each other that long, but for whatever it's worth, I want you to own that, because the things that you shared with me, the negative impact that they had, and then the job loss, and then this devastation. I know that feeling, but you said bump it anyway, and you just like allowed yourself to explore a different possibility. So I just want to take a moment and give you that. You're an incredibly strong person.
Thank you. I think I also always had a bit of a stubborn streak. When
Mm-hmm.
I really, really wanted something, it usually nothing deterred me.
Mm-hmm.
So there were situations that also, my father, for example, he didn't want me to go to university because he was of the opinion a girl kind of learns a job and then becomes a secretary or something. I mean, my father was a lovely, lovely man, but
Mm-hmm.
he was brought up with those beliefs. And anyway, so I went to interviews and on purpose did really, really badly at them, so that I wouldn't find an apprenticeship. And I said, Dad, I'm sorry, I think I have to go to university. So that was one occasion I really, really wanted that. He didn't want me to go to university, but I
Mm-hmm.
made it happen, and I mostly paid myself my own way through the university. That's um, and yeah, those kind of things, they happen sometimes. So I'm really, really stubborn, and so just recently, there was, I don't know, not even 2 weeks ago, um, my oncologist told me that there's nothing she can do anymore for me and my cancer. And the weird thing was, I didn't break out into tears, and I didn't scream and howl. My husband was in tears, and my daughter was in tears. But I was very, very calm, and I felt relief, because I said, okay, so now you won't interfere with my healing approach anymore.
Mm.
So
Right.
I have something to prove here. I have to prove now that um, allopathic medicine is not the only way how we heal our bodies and our minds, and that
Mm-hmm.
you see the body separate from the
Mm-hmm.
mind, and that you shouldn't do that. You should see it all, because to my oncologist, they have radiation, they have chemotherapy, and they have surgery. None
Mm-hmm.
of these things have worked for my cancer. So they, at the end, and they say, okay, bye, next one, please. Whereas when you approach healing from a holistic way, then you see lots of opportunities that at least you can try, and you keep your agency. You can do things, you can do something to heal, and you can go back to, and that's where it is connected to traumas we've experienced throughout our lives, whether it's childhood trauma or later in life, is
Mm-hmm.
we kind of we put them in a little box in our brains, and they're stored in the subconscious, and every now and then they pop up their ugly heads, and these little demons come out, and maybe take opportunities from us that we could have used had we if we had a different mindset. And so, yeah,
No,
you wanted to say something?
well, you really, that statement right there, that last thing that you said is
To miss out on opportunities.
because of your mindset. That is just really the highlight of, well, everything, isn't it? I mean, I hear your determination. You went to college despite you're being told not to. You've overcome these things, and I see the fight that you have in you, you know. Um, and I know you wouldn't have it any other way. So, uh,
No.
yeah. And I'm listening to you describe that, and there's a certain amount of pragmatism that I hear in your voice. When you took that information and you said that you didn't cry, and I can almost imagine your brain was just already going to work to figure out a way.
Yeah.
How are you gonna? The determination kicked in, that fighter kicked in. I can imagine that 4 or 5 year old little girl giving the finger to the mom, that kicked in, and you're like,
Yeah.
I'm not having this. And it's kind of it's a badass approach. I mean, I just have to say that, because
Yeah,
what.
but in a way, don't have a choice. I mean, okay, I could lie back and say, okay, now I'm dying, um, but you're between a rock and a hard place. Whatever you want to call it, you have
Mhm,
no choice. And in that moment, I felt relieved because I knew that now I could, without any criticism,
mhm,
um, explore all the alternative treatments I want.
mhm,
Maybe not all of them because there are some really weird ones and some really expensive ones. But that gave me relief because I
mhm.
said, and if I then recover and heal, wouldn't that be great to go back to my oncologist and tell her, hey,
Right. I wanted to just,
you don't know it all.
yeah, I did want to comment though, because not in the spirit of disagreeing with you, but I want to highlight what you said, because actually you do have a choice. Like you said, you can choose to just be defeated
Mhm.
and just, wallow in whatever, and just, like you
Yeah.
said, just go, get ready to go, whatever. Or your choice. And I want to tie that back again to your mindset, because I'm a really
Yeah.
big believer in mindset. I think it really does make a difference, because no matter what the outcome is, going back to earlier in our conversation when you were talking about being in the moment, right? So,
Hmm.
regardless of what happens, the value is in raising your current momentary experience to the highest level that you possibly can. So you can either live in this moment choosing to be defeated, or you can live in this moment
Hmm.
choosing to have a fighter approach and choosing to have a different mindset. And so I think it is a choice, and I wanted to call that out, because
Yeah.
you are making a choice, because you did have an option to just be
To do
defeated.
nothing.
Right, but
Yeah.
you are making a choice. You are deliberately choosing to handle this in a different way. And no matter what happens, you're making a difference in your daily experience in living in the moment and living in the now, because there are so many people who don't do that. They don't have the crisis before you that you have, your situation. Let me not use, I don't want to use the word crisis. I want to just the situation. They have a different situation. And by not living in the moment and by not exercising a positive or a more productive mindset, one could argue in certain situations that they are diminishing their own daily experience, even though they may not have as dire of a circumstance as you're facing right now. So that really is the difference maker, I think. And it's incredibly powerful, because you're taking charge of your life, and you're taking charge of your experience, and how you're going to get up every day and face the day on your terms. So I did want to just say that as a reminder to anyone who's watching this, it's always a choice. Even, there's that Rush song. If you choose, what is it? How, if you choose not to decide, you still have made a choice. Remember that song from that group
Yeah, yeah,
Rush?
yeah,
Yeah, there's
yeah,
always a choice. Even inaction is a choice, right? So,
yeah. You're quite right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. For me, it became apparent also through what I'd done before that the mind actually might even have a bigger impact than the nutrition and supplements and medication and things like that. So everyone who follows Dr. Joe Dispenza knows how he talks about the power or the healing power of the mind as well. It's just very, very fascinating.
mhm.
But for me, who I was a person who grew up without any kind of spirituality or not even stronger emotions, because I cannot remember that once in my life my parents told me that they loved me.
Oh, wow.
and and that is something that so for me now, for me it's really, really hard to tell another person I love you. And um i I really have to get up my courage to do that, because there comes this mindset thing about I'm not good enough. What if he doesn't love me? What if um so but then I kind of play through that, and I ask myself, so how often does it happen that this goes wrong, what you're trying to do? And then you look back and say, well, kind of never really. And then, if I tell my husband that I love him, he will tell me that he loves me too. So
Mhm.
why am I afraid to say it? So, and that's where I need to change my mind, where I need to establish new paths in my brain, where I say, okay, the old groove of being scared of telling a person that I love her or him needs to be overridden by a person who wants to spread joy and love openly, and say, well, even if you don't love me, I can love you.
Mm.
And then not having this disappointment programmed into it, because I can't make anyone do anything really. I have control over myself most of the time, although at the moment I feel like I lost control a little bit but the mind is in fact very, very powerful, and that was for me also in that moment, in that with the oncologist, that I said no. um this is a bit of a been given lemons here, so I'm going out to make lemonade, and that for me meant to do um go out and heal my whole body, which includes the mind as well.
Mhm.
And yeah, and and see how I can achieve that. I don't know whether it will work. And I have better days and I have worse days, and especially in the evenings, things are getting tough.
Right.
But oh, sorry, I'm a bit croaky. But it is we are not our thoughts. they are, we don't, we make our thoughts. They are such a great special effects department in our head. We create them, which doesn't mean that they are necessarily true. And and that is a big thing for me to say, whenever something, one of those bad, poor mindset things pops up, and I ask myself, so whoever said that? And I can't quote a person. So I said, so why do you believe it's true? And that's, I think that's the important thing, because you have created this in your head. So you also must then be able to undo it in your head. And that's the big thing where I am at the moment, to find a good approach, because there's also so much literature and videos on how to heal yourself from trauma, and how to do whatever, heal your body. And it's a lot of waffle, because hardly ever do you find something a bit like an instruction manual where you get access and say, okay, here's how you go about it,
Right.
and here's how you do it. And also because you don't see the connection when someone tells me, okay, Kirsten, you need to meditate, it's good for you, and I say, yeah, all right, but how does it help me? I can't meditate. Whenever I meditate, I my mind goes all over the place, and I can't focus, and then every person experiencing meditation will tell you, Kirsten, like everything else, it's practice. You can't just sit down and expect to be able to meditate. You have to really um, practice meditation, and then uh, be able, at one point you will be able to meditate, and at one point you will be able to advance and go deeper and find things out. But um, yeah, that's the hard bit, I think, when you know what the theory is,
Mm-hmm.
but to really get access to it, especially when the clock is ticking in the background. So I and it did, and for me, especially at the moment, I know that I haven't got much time left to figure things out, how to get my body back into balance. That the cancer, who's was a messenger, basically saying, hey, what you're doing to me, I don't want to live like this anymore. You have to change it. um, I don't know how how much time I have to unwind or undo decades of telling myself the wrong things. That's that's something scary for me.
I know. I remember our conversation from last week, and I I empathize with what you're going through. I did want I did want to touch on just a couple of things that you were just saying just now when you were talking about
Mm,
taking practice, right? Um, because I'm looking at one of the things that you talked about in your survey answers. You said I always like change and like challenges, and I really was struck by what you said. You said getting older is no excuse to get unhealthy and lazy. You said I always set myself goals to be the best version of myself that I can possibly be. And it sounds like that's exactly what you're doing right now. I see you talked about the free handstand, wanting to master the free handstand and yoga, jump through, and things that you had already mastered. And that I know it sounds like a bit of an oxymoron, but in your words, You said these challenges make me feel alive, and I know, and I you know that in contrast to what you're saying about having limited time to undo decades and turn things around. And I just, I know this is, this is a very sensitive topic. And
Mm.
I think that the way that you're handling it is very commendable. And I want to thank you again for sharing your story with me and the audience here. Because what I'm feeling, if can I share with you what I'm feeling when I'm just by knowing you through this, is that, I mean, first of all, nobody knows what tomorrow brings. Period.
That's right.
It doesn't matter. A perfectly healthy young person could be taken out by whatever. I mean, it's we don't know anything that's going to happen. So you might as well just assume the best, right? So I my the impact that watching you go through this is having on me, if I can share with you, is
Mm-hmm.
that it might sound cliche or corny or whatever, but it actually is, it has inspired me, Kirsten. It has really made an impression upon me to get my act together and tune up my mindset, you know, because I think that there's a lot of, and I'm guilty of this. I will admit this openly to the whole world. I'm guilty of getting caught up in the stupidity of the day by day nonsense. And the next thing you know,
Mm-hmm.
you're taking your days for granted. You're taking your time for granted. You're just taking everything for granted because you're just so busy, and you're doing whatever. And when you said doing something that you actually hate and things like that, I mean, it is ridiculous. Because whether you're 20, 40, 60, 80, whatever your age is, yeah, each and every single solitary day that we wake up is a gift. And the next day is not promised. And to have the courage, despite
Yeah.
whatever the childhood mindsets were, these experiences that you had, your situation, for you to just be just robust and boldly just moving forward. I'm doing things my way. I think that we need to pause a minute, and people really need to understand the power behind that and pay the attention to going about life that way. Because wouldn't it have been nice to have kind of come to these conclusions a long time ago? I mean, I'm feeling that way.
Absolutely. I and I thought to myself, the message could also have been a little bit more subtle rather than this full on scenario. Um, and that's why it's I can't just or can't still wrap my head around it, to be honest. Um, because we get in dangerous crying territory when I think about things like will I ever see my children graduate from university, for example. And then I try to flip that immediately and say, okay, no, I'm not going down that road. What I'm going to do is close my eyes and envision myself at my children's graduation. Create a picture of them wearing that black thing and this I forget the name for the squarey hat,
Mm-hmm.
and stepping up onto the podium and receiving their graduation documents and what kind of whether the there's any colored glass in the windows and the light streaming in, and the woman next to me is wearing too much perfume. And to really create a vision that you can live that moment already. And that is something what I find is good to do when you get into dangerous territory where you are envisioning the worst, where you're seeing the worst. But my situation is so bad, and every day I'm in pain, and I can't, beginning of February, that was not so long ago, I went whitewater rafting with my daughter, and a month later, I'm sitting here, and I can't walk properly anymore, and and standing is also very painful for me. Whereas every day I took I've got two border collies. I took them out for at least a couple of hours every day. We either ran or walked or hiked or did something, and now I my day looks like I'm moving between from one couch to the next with swallowing some pills and drinking liters of freshly juiced carrots so that I turn orange, and then still see the positive in that. And for me, one positive thing that I can get from all this is that I finally got the kick in the butt to explore myself and to finally figure out who I am, truly am, who I am after I've shed all those um, limiting beliefs and poor mindset issues. Who's left? Who's the person that is left? And because that's up to me, who I want to be and who I want to build. So when I say I want to live, be the best person I can possibly be, that includes everything around me, from my body and the fitness, and but also in interaction with others and my world and animals, whatever it is. Do the best you can be, and you have the power, I think, to build that. But you just need to give yourself a break and try and figure that out, and take the time to really go deep and explore yourself. And yeah, that is one good thing. So I'm doing lots of exploring at the moment, and also in ways where I before would have said, no, I'm out of here. I'm not going for that stuff. Um, it has opened me up. It has opened me to look into things that I would have just not even looked at before. And yeah, and it has also made me a lot more observant of myself and others, to um, to really feel into yourself, to really feel the emotions and what's coming up in the motion in the moment, and with this emotion, to see, does that make me feel good or does that make me feel bad? Because in the past I often ignored my gut feeling. So I went to work for years and years, and felt so bad that, because I thought I was a bad mother, um, having so many nannies and pursuing a career. But when in having come to a situation like mine, um, you need to really open yourself up for everything that's there, and say, no, I wasn't a bad mother. I did um, what I could to give them the best future possible, which means to be able to afford the education they need. And we still did a heaps of stuff with the kids. And sadly, in this society, still career for women is still questionable once children are on the scenes. You usually, or very often, still get lined because you're a woman. Um, yeah. So now I'm just exploring a lot and see what I can find, see what I can dig up and fix. It's a bit like sitting in a boat that has some holes, and you kind of trying to repair all the holes one by one and hope that you finish before it sinks.
I hear what you're saying, and I want to ask, I have a burning question for you.
Hmm.
If you were to advise someone to stop and take the time to explore themselves, like you were saying, and really get to know more about what's going on inside, and really kind of face whatever they find, right? What would you
Hmm.
say would be the single most powerful piece of advice that you could give to someone as they're doing that, no matter what it is that they find
I
when they're
think
exploring? What would be the advice that you would give to someone?
if they don't like what they, I mean, the first advice I would give people is to actually start doing it.
Mm-hmm.
That's the first thing, because a lot of people, they think, oh, maybe I should know myself better, or they have feel that they need to know themselves better, don't know themselves properly. They should really commit themselves to that journey, and that's the most important thing, because then you're open to maybe look for help,
Right.
or you're open to um, at least explore that idea a little bit and research it. But you have to start somewhere. And that's the hardest thing, to open up and say, okay, what is out there? What can I actually do? And how can I do it? Because that is the thing. The how is so important. Um, it's, you can say, one task is I hang up the washing, and I can describe it to you. But how would you say, okay, explore yourself and find find your truth? Nobody's
Yeah.
written a handbook about that.
Well, and just to, for argument's sake, maybe they should. Maybe there
Yeah, they
needs to be
should.
more
Absolutely.
emphasis on well, for
The
example,
practical part.
shameless plug, clean your windows, right? I mean,
Yeah.
clean out your perspective, um and in the spirit of how you did things, um let that voice have a word. Let
Yeah.
it have a word, let it have its say, because I just think to tie all of these things together that we've talked about today. And again, thank you for sharing that very personal part of what's going on in your life right now. I really thank you for that. But I think that it's a battle cry to really go all in on your life.
Yes.
And I
And
feel like I feel like I keep saying, oh, that's so cliche, everybody says that, but everybody says that, but still so many people are not doing anything about it. So I'm going to keep saying it over and over again, no matter how cliche it sounds, no matter how many times you've heard it before. You only get one life. Tomorrow isn't promised. Don't take every day for granted, because it's like we need a constant reminder, because I think that things would be entirely different in the world right now if more people actually were practicing what we hear, what we read on the Hallmark cards, and the feel good little daily attributions, and
Yeah.
These are the things that you see on a bumper sticker or whatever, but yet and still we see so many people not taking that seriously. And so
Yeah.
let's just say it again over and over every single day, no matter how cliche or worn out it gets. You have to stop. You have to know yourself. Because if you don't know yourself, then how do you know what the hell you're doing with your life?
Yeah.
And, one of the things that,
Absolutely.
if I might infuse just a little bit about our experience last summer, um, this is one of the, and I talked about you to people and the work that we did together and how deep you go with your questions and your process. And as you recall, it was emotional for me
Mm-hmm.
working with you. Um, Shed some tears on some of those calls because my voice has been screaming and hollering to get out, as you know.
Mm-hmm.
I feel so strongly about this, Kirsten, because I'm watching you go through what you're going through right now. I'm grateful that you shared your story, although we don't have the same exact experiences. There's a theme. There's a theme there that's very common,
Yes, we have
very
a
common,
lot of things in common. Yeah.
very common themes. Childhood experiences that were, unpleasant. And but here we are at the end of the day, both survivors and very determined. You went against the grain, and I I can see it in your work that you eventually found your way to what you love to do with your business, and you're fantastic with your clients. And I just wanted to put that out there because I'm just going to go out and just say, just speaking from being a client of yours on the receiving end, because my next question for you is going to be, I'll get to that, but part of your legacy that you're leaving behind, and I'm saying that I have a legacy to leave behind. I'm not, I'm not speaking in terms of anything that has to do with your current situation, but I would hope that people could be motivated by the idea of having a legacy, whether they're 20, 30, 40, 50, whatever, working towards your purpose and armed with the deep knowledge of who you really truly are is going to be even more powerful and more advantageous for the individual living in the moment, enhancing the daily experience. But the fact that you went against the grain, you went to university despite, regardless, whatever you were told, you overcame the childhood experiences, you recognized, these things didn't make me feel good about myself. I have, cultivated this mindset that's not working for me, but you did it anyway. And I just want to say that no
Mm-hmm.
matter what happens, if I may, you've already won, because so many people will go to the end of their lifespan not having done a damn thing about getting to know themselves better, or even when they do get to know themselves or they do recognize that they have desires or whatever, many will not have the courage to make the change and overcome that and get through those obstacles. They will not rise to the challenge, and they will continue marching down this predetermined path that they've been put on. I'm not calling names, but there's someone who's really close to me in my life, a family member, who has expressed over decades and years a certain desire that they have to live a certain life and they never did it. Never, never, never. I mean, they've lived a fantastic life at points, but this this deal about living for somebody else is so steeped in the human experience that I get it. It seems like it's virtuous and everything like that, but if you really examine that, I mean, it's virtuous to a point. I think there's a time and a place and an appropriate situations where, yes, you do selflessly live for someone else. I mean, that's what is to be, to have humility and to care for humankind and to care for your loved ones and be a good family member. So I'm not saying, oh, just be selfish and do whatever you want all the time and to heck with everybody else. That's not what I'm talking about. But just in terms of living your own truth, you've already won. And I wanted to say that that's part of your legacy. Just in the lives that you touch, the way that you are, helping other people through the work that you do. And I don't know all the different work things that you've done because I only know you through your current business.
Mm.
Um, but it's powerful, and I think that needs to be stated, because if you can at least make an impact to the people that you encounter in such a way, and you've accomplished certain things despite whatever the origin story is,
Mm.
to me, that's winning. And I'm not saying that. I
Yeah,
mean so much respect to you. I am not in any way trying to diminish or downplay what you're going through. And I'm not trying to,
and
you know,
yeah, but the thing is that um, by understanding yourself and shedding all those beliefs of who you believed you were that were instilled into you by other people, you are rewriting your narrative. And I have had that because my mother, she had a cancer diagnosis when she was 53 and died of cancer 7 years later at the age of 60. So when I turned 54 and 55, I went, oh, dodge that bullet. And that then I was diagnosed with cancer. I just turned 56. That's actually when I got the message that my cancer is back and that there's nothing that can be done. So that wasn't the best of my birthdays. But I believe that I can still rewrite my narrative by um, finding out what's actually still going wrong in my body, why it's so out of balance, and to see that in the time that I have and that every day I contribute something towards healing that and fixing that, and at the end to have that person that I was really meant to be. So that's that's something. And um my I have three purpose words, and they are listen, enlighten, and empower. And if I do that during the day, then I know I've had a good day. If there's someone I listened to, or someone I shared my knowledge with, or someone I gave some tools to live a better life, or maybe just have some enjoy something and have a laugh, then that's a good day, basically. So what I'm doing for me, for myself, is now to do that as well. And I'm doing a lot of listening at the moment, and I'm still on the path to enlightenment in many respects, but hopefully that it then empowers my body to heal. So when get my mind on the right course, that it gives my body the message, heal. You don't need those cells in you anymore.
Yeah.
That's that.
Well, Kirsten, I
But if
know
I
we're
didn't have that, it would be hard to start the day. We're over already. Yeah.
well. Now I'm not on a time limit, but I know that it's getting late where you are,
Yeah. It's
and
getting on.
I
Yeah.
wanted to I don't want you to first of all, thank you for what you said. I think that's very powerful that you can even still say, if I can do these things, then that's a good day. That you're identifying with, having a good day, and I that is so incredible. Um, Continuing to make that choice, I make that decision that this is the mindset that you choose to have. That you're still looking up what's a good day. Before we close, though, just one thing I like to do with folks. I like these big talk cards. I don't know if you've used these, but I pulled a card out,
Hmm.
and I want to ask you this one question: what should people do more of?
People should be more present in the moment.
That's a good answer, and I will take heed to that. Um, I have really enjoyed this conversation with you today, and thank you so much for
Thank you.
sharing your story with me. How can people, if people want to get in touch with you in any way, do you want to share about your business a little bit, or it's up to you?
Well, I can't do that. You can reach out to me on LinkedIn with my name, like it's in the window, Kirsten Back. You can find
Mm-hmm.
my profile on LinkedIn
Mm-hmm.
and just message me on LinkedIn. I have to say at the moment I'm not really very active, and I've got a big backlog because I'm right now focused on my healing.
Yeah.
But also on my LinkedIn page, you can find everything on my email address, etc. Read some stuff about my business, download some freebies and things.
Yeah.
So my business is called The Word Distiller.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and yeah, if you're curious also about what kind of content I write, then go there, check out my blog on my website. It's all from my LinkedIn profile.
Yeah. Or just send some kind words
Yeah, yeah.
and say hello.
Say hi
Yeah.
and send me some good energy. and I,
Absolutely.
I and I hope that maybe we will even do another interview at one point.
I would
That's
love to.
that's one of those goals I have.
Let's let's do it then. So it's done.
Yeah.
So absolutely. Well, Kirsten, it's approaching 9:30 at night there, right?
Yes.
Because we're 12. Right. So let me let you go so you can get some rest. Thank you again
Hmm.
for your time. It's always lovely to speak with you, and I
Yeah.
will talk to you again soon.
Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye for now.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.